So
ask Dad.
I'm gonna take a quick call from Don in
Let's
Toronto.
do that, because he's
maybe a slow call.
He's our first guy. No, it might be fine.
I think he's been on for a while. Don, are you there?
Hi there. How you doing, guys?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks. I just have, I'm an atheist myself, but I just have kind of a tongue-in-cheek argument against the argument that the Christian God is immoral.
So against the argument that he's immoral, you're arguing
that he's beyond morality.
Okay.
Okay. If you believe in the concept of a Christian God, it would be ineffective to kind of argue that the God that's depicted in the Bible is an immoral creature, because if the Christian God is supposedly omnipotent, everything it does, it can also undo. So morality is kind of a moot point for God with that capability. And so God being immoral is kind of the same as a human thinking about destroying something and then unthinking it. So I think that's why Christians kind of don't accept that their God is immoral. What do you think about that? It's
sort of a larger version of President Nixon's, well, if the president
does it,
it's not illegal.
Right? Well, the little problem there is that, of course, well, if God can undo every single thing he does, then he's not really omnipotent, because that would mean that there wasn't something that he could do that he could not undo. Right?
Yeah, well, that's why the concept of an omnipotent God is totally absurd.
Mm-hmm. Right. But, well, yeah, you said it was tongue-in-cheek. I don't know. I've never actually, though, heard a Christian phrase it in the way that you've done. I think usually what they do is just wave their hands and say, oh, well, God doesn't count because he's beyond all that. And they don't feel they have to sort of explain it anymore.
Right, which is why I don't like to argue in a general way, I think God is immoral, because then we just get bogged down in this swamp of, where does morality come from and stuff. But instead, I like to go to specific concrete examples, like, would you kill your son if God told you to? That's one of my favorites.
Right,
So anyway, it seems to me that the Christian God probably doesn't understand about morality. That's why he sort of seems so immoral as far as he's depicted in the Bible. Anyway, that was just my 2 cents on it.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
Well, appreciate it, Don.
Thanks.
See ya. So a month ago, actually, when I was going to be on, I was scheduled to go to be on Easter Sunday. But it turned out there was no show on Easter Sunday for whatever stupid reason.
We usually have one, though, don't they?
Well, I don't know. We didn't have one last month.
I
showed up and having failed to read the webpage updates. And but it was no problem. I was actually coming home from church. I decided for fun, my fiance Linnea is actually from California and has not been to a real Southern Baptist church. And I thought, hey, I know a Southern Baptist church. Kyle Miller's church, Great Hills Baptist. Some of you may remember Kyle from the program a few months ago. So I went to an actual Easter service at Great Hills Baptist Church, and then a couple days later, I bumped into Kyle at church, and then we all went to lunch together. And
was he surprised?
He didn't seem that surprised. He seemed eager to get us into more. So like,
oh, I'm sure he did. Yes.
Later that week, the guy who wrote "I don't have enough faith to be an atheist" was supposed to make an appearance at the church, and we wanted to go to that, but then we realized like it was like rush hour on a weekday, and we were like, nah, I don't want to go to it that bad.
Yeah. That'd be interesting.
But we all went to lunch and talked about faith and not having any, and I still think what I thought on the show, which is that Kyle is an incredibly nice guy that I'd like to hang out with, and he's he's not what you would expect of your typical Southern Baptist. He's very friendly, very accommodating, still very insistent about the faith stuff, but fun to talk to. Yeah. And that's part of what a lot of people found so frustrating about the show he was on, is they wanted a bloodbath and didn't get it.
Yeah, I know. They were sort of, just in the chat. I was watching on Ustream that day, and in the chat room they were all sort of calling for his entrails to be strewn about the studio.
Right.
And you weren't doing it enough to so we can never please the chat room when there's not enough blood. We're sorry, guys. But, so it's... Now this is we've done. You know, I grew up as went through my adolescence in a Texas Baptist church.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have fond memories of those days, right? And people, a lot of people are always surprised about how I enjoyed it. Involved in the youth activities, and we did lock-ins in the rec room thing. And I think when I was 13 years old, I went to summer camp with the whole, and that was all fun stuff. But then after my people, enjoying the activities and what have you is an entirely separate issue from, well, is any of this stuff true?
Right.
And so that's really where the rubber meets the road. I can certainly acknowledge that lots of nice folks, fun to talk to, and the church environment. I can see why a lot of people consider that very positive.
I mean, we did talk about that some at lunch. One of the things that I noticed when I went to his church, first of all, it's Easter Sunday, so that's the day when every Christian comes that hasn't been for the rest of the year. And so the sermon is tailored to make everybody feel really guilty. It'd be like, you don't want to be a part-time Christian. I mean, I'm not naming anyone in particular, but you want to devote your entire life. You shouldn't expect it to be easy. And then there was a particular thing that came up in the sermon, which was something like, you can't expect. I mean, God is under no obligation to fulfill your intellectual curiosity. Which to me, I mean, simply meant stop asking so many questions.
Exactly.
And just
That's
believe.
exactly what it means. Yeah.
Now, Kyle assures me that's not what he meant, and there are all kinds of arguments. Good, solid reasons for believing in God, but I don't feel like we got to any.
Well, yeah, right.
So,
I mean, and they'll tell. It's like, oh, well, that's not really what I meant. See, when he'll say, when you call him on the things that he says, he'll fall back on that sort of thing, and then you just kind of have to go, well, what did you mean?
Right.
And,
but anyway,
and that's where the fun can begin.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Who's next?
Kevin's waiting.
Kevin in Orlando, and that's line 2. Kevin.
Hello?
Hey, you're on.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Great show. I'm an atheist myself, and I have a quick question I wanted to ask you guys. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
You're on. You're good.
Go on. Go on.
Did we lose Kevin? Kevin?
Oh, well, that sucks.
I think we lost Kevin, but we have his...
We know what the question is.
Yeah. You called us to ask about this supposed recent... How many does it make this time now? Noah's Ark has now been discovered something like 36 times.
I don't know. There was an incident in Turkey where there was an actual. I mean, this was like decades ago, but there was a guy who was an actual deliberate fraud. He got this wood, and then he like boiled it or something to make it look old, and then he took it to some organization that looks up. That tries to justify these Christian stories.
Sure.
And then, even after he said it was a hoax, they didn't say anything.
Right.
I mean, they wouldn't let scientists examine it. Now, this time around,
and of course, it's sources like Fox News and WorldNet Daily are reporting on this. No legitimate news outlet is reporting on this.
Right.
But apparently, earlier this week, there was yet another discovery of what the discoverers are claiming is Noah's Ark on a mountain in Turkey, and they've supposedly... This is interesting. They've carbon dated it to 4,800 years old. This is the claim.
Yeah, so now they believe.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Now suddenly, carbon dating is something that Christians accept, right? I mean, you try to show them fossils, and you try to show them all different sorts of archaeological proof and paleontological evidence for, well, this is how we date dinosaurs, and this is how we date the strata, and they say, oh, well, that's just fake, it didn't work. And then, but, oh no, when it comes to...
And then they say, don't you know that carbon dating has been proven to be completely unreliable?
Yeah.
Why, there was this rock that I dug up 10 minutes ago, and it was 70 trillion years old.
It's like when you carbon date the, the Shroud of Turin, to demonstrate that the cloth doesn't go back much farther than, say, the 13th, 14th century, then carbon dating is a fraud. Right. But when it comes to, but suddenly it's not a fraud now when it's their ark. Yeah. Here's the thing. Discoveries like the Shroud of Turin and Noah's Ark are really great ways that you can witness this odd sort of love-hate relationship that fundamentalist Christians have with science, right? I mean, on the one hand, they really disdain science because it's science's job, essentially, to piddle all over their beliefs, right? You know, they have, you know, whatever their religious, you know, teaching tells them about the history of the world and where people came from or this, that, or the other thing. Along comes science with all of its, you know, research and its evidence and everything else, and, you know, sticks its little willy right in the middle of it all and spoils the fun. So they really have this disdain for science, but at the same time they recognize, well, in a contemporary, modern, rationalist culture, rationalist society, you kind of have to have some scientific backing because that's how you're legitimate, right? That's